Okay, so hopefully by now a few of you have actually heard of us. We're a company called Touchscape, and what we make is multi-touch surfaces. So I'm hoping that a couple of you have maybe seen some of our previous videos on the web that show you our SDK and our product, but in case they haven't, here's a quick overview. So this is our 47-inch touchscreen, and it's running our standard SDK. Now the SDK basically allows you to create applications without having to worry about the multi-orientation or multi-touch aspect of actually developing for one of these screens. So there you just saw the water, for example, and here we've just got a standard application renderer that allows us to render a web browser onto a panel. Now these panels can actually be rotated, as I said, scaled, and the developer never actually has to worry about those things. This one again, it just injects touches into, this is Firefox running in the background here, and a little bit of MC Hammer. We've got a keyboard, and they have little effects, you know, when they're closed down, just things to make it look a little bit nicer. What we realised though, shortly after making this, is that there's actually a vast network of developers who, while they have a love for multi-touch, they don't actually have the hardware capabilities to make one of these devices themselves. And so what we decided to do is to actually make a smaller form factor version. So if you just follow me over here. So what we have in this box is the Touchscape Prawn. Now the Prawn is essentially the same technology that's in our main table, but obviously condensed. So there's a PS3 camera in there, an LCD screen that runs at 1360x768 resolution, all the backlighting, and it comes in the same acrylic that we make the main table from. You just need to plug this into your machine, and after you've downloaded a couple of drivers and installed our software, you're essentially ready to start developing multi-touch applications for yourself. So we'll take this over here and we'll plug it into a computer. Okay, so the Prawn plugs into your computer just like a standard second monitor. The only difference here is that we actually have a USB camera that we also plug in. So I'm just going to set this up here, turn on the power, plug in the VGA. And we're running Windows 7 here, but this will essentially run on any operating system. Right now, once you've got your Prawn plugged in, you just need to download a couple of drivers and then you're ready to go. So the first thing that you need is the CLI driver, which is available from Code Laboratory's website, and that is essentially the PS3 driver that you need to run the camera. Once you've got that, you can download some tracking software, and the one that we suggest is from the NUI group. It's called Community Core Vision, which is probably the best tracking software you can get for multi-touch at the minute. You download that and it's easy enough to install, but we'll take you through it in a few seconds. And then you can download our own SDK from the Touchscape website, and that will obviously give you information on how to install the other things as well. Okay, now once you've got those, we'll just open up Community Core Vision here. And what you'll find is Community Core Vision will open up, and you might have to change a few settings around. We've already got this one set up, but I'm going to take you through the settings now anyways. Now the first thing you might want to change is on the actual camera settings, and it's just to change the gain and the exposure. I tend to turn both off. It just means that you have the auto exposure and the auto gain off, sorry. And it just essentially lets you set things up a little bit more manually. So exposure will obviously brighten up the screen, so will gain, but we tend to keep that quite low, around 30, 35, 34, and the gain around 23. Then you can set up the actual CCV configuration. So you've got amplify, which just amplifies the images that's coming in. You'll notice it changes the size of the blob dramatically, and we keep that around 150, 160. Image threshold will actually it'll filter out a lot of noise. If you turn that really high up, you'll notice that the blobs get smaller and smaller, and when you turn them down, they'll get a little bit bigger. And we keep that really low with these devices, it's around 9, 10. Minimum blob size we set at 1 because we tend not to get any noise on these prawns, so we can keep that as low as we possibly can. Maximum blob size is really just whatever your preference is. We only track fingers in the office, so we keep that around 215. The high pass we turn on, and that is just to filter out a lot of this noise that you see here. So when I turn it off, there's a lot of random noise. Turn it on and put a bit of noise filtering on to about 3. The blur onto 9. The blur actually increased the size of the blob again. And all these processes just basically mean that it picks up your fingers a lot better than it normally would. And then we put dynamic subtract on. When dynamic subtract, if you leave your finger on, then after a few seconds the blob will start getting smaller and smaller. And it removes things like smudges on the screen and little bits, flicks of light that you've maybe got coming in from your office or whatever. Although the filter on the camera actually removes a lot of that itself. Now I'll turn that into minimize mode, and you'll notice that we've got it set to run at 60 frames per second. One thing you'll want to do before you actually start developing your software is to configure CCV. So we'll press C here and you get a grid on the screen. Now the reason you need to calibrate is that a normal lens will actually distort the image slightly, so it's not a complete rectangle. So we need to calibrate at each of these points, and that'll adjust the image that CCV sees so that it matches the rectangle shape of the screen. So we'll just start this calibration off, and you get little points on that you press your finger on, they'll go from red to blue to white, and white means that that point's being calibrated. Okay, so calibration is now complete, and it tracks your fingers quite nicely there. And the good thing about these prawns is that they'll track as many fingers as you can put down on the screen, which is obviously really helpful if you've got 100 people working on a single desk. The likelihood is slim. Okay, so CCV is now totally up and running. This frame rate's still running at 60 FPS. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring up the Touchscape SDK. Now the SDK that we've got downloadable on our site is actually the exact same one that we put on our commercial product. But obviously the DLLs are open that you can start making your own applications for it. And again, like I said, it takes the consideration away from the developer about rotation and everything. You develop your application as though you're developing for a single static screen, and then we do all the rendering that turns that from your application and puts it on one of these panels that you can rotate, resize, and can actually interact with other panels depending on how you use the API. This is the Spheres game that a few of you have probably seen before. It's just a little puzzle game that you can unravel the spheres and they turn green, and that means you've completed this puzzle. Now the good thing about our SDK is it's all written in Augur, which runs either DirectX or OpenGL. We tend to run DirectX. And the good thing about that compared to some other of these SDKs is that it's actually a fully 3D system. So I mean, I don't know how well you can tell on this, but the Spheres game are actually using real spheres. It's got real depth on the camera, it's using a perspective camera. And you can put pixel shaders or essentially anything you'd want to put in a DirectX context you can use in our SDK. Now the good thing about that is that we can put anti-aliasing on the edges, we can put shadow effects, we can put particle systems. Essentially anything that you can make, you can put on our SDK. And so I'll bring you back to where we started off, and that's the water. And it looks exactly the same as it does on the table, and it runs exactly the same. And that's your Prawn, available now from the Nui group and from Touchscape to get you using multi-touch out of the box. Are you scared of drowning in your swimming pool when you go to sleep at night? There's an app for that.